Hey everyone, Mr. MC here. This is a lap guide for the new lap time challenge taking place at Deep Forest with the Mazda Spirit Racing Roadster 12R. To access this lap time challenge, go on over to Sport mode, so make sure you have menu book number 9 completed so you can access this mode. Click on Online Time Trials, which is towards the middle of the screen, and then you want to click on this lap time challenge, which is currently all the way to the left. So this lap time challenge goes on until the end of October 22nd, 2025, where we're in a fully stocked 12R on the sports hard tires. Your goal is to get within the 3% time range of the world record time when the event ends, as that is when your lap time gets counted, and hopefully you'll be able to get to 2 million credits. Now I do want to take a quick look at this car's setup because it's a bit of a weird one. So we don't know how much power and weight this car has. The only things we do know is that it has sports hard tires, which is a bit creepy with this car. And it has a pretty soft suspension setup. So that is something that you do want to keep in mind, as if you are a bit too sudden with your inputs, then this car can potentially get upset and may want to throw you into the wall. But now let's go ahead and get started with the lap guide, where when you're trying to get ready for a brand new lap, you can turn in just a little bit later. So this is just after the curb on the right ends. This is where you can start to turn in. That way you can try to get the car already pointing towards the next section of the track. However, as you saw right there, you do want to be careful getting back on the throttle, because this car can step out on you if you are a bit too aggressive getting back on the throttle. Now you can rev it out just a little bit, but you want to be careful about revving it out too much, because you do risk hitting the rev limiter, which will end up costing you some time. So now go ahead and bring yourself towards the right side of the track, because your first braking point is going to be before the curb on the right starts. So this is before the 100 meter board. You're going to use all of your braking power and brake in a straight line. You're going to wait until you're about to reach the 50 meter board before you start to turn in. And you can see that I'm barely starting to turn in. So once you reach the 50 meter board, that is where you go ahead and start to turn in. Gradually make your way down to third gear, and you'll see that I wait a little bit until I go down to third gear, and then start to ease off of the brakes as you're turning in, so you're doing a bit of trail braking. Now I do let the car coast for just a brief moment, so this is just to let the car turn in a bit more. But as you can see right about here, so this is before the lighter gray tarmac starts to narrow down. That is where I start to get back on the throttle, but you don't want to be at full throttle input, because this is where the car can get a bit sketchy and might want to try to spin out. So you want to try to be gradual with your throttle input, and you want to use as much as you comfortably can so you can make it through the first corner. Now for these series of turns, this is where it gets a little tricky. You're turning in just before the curb on the left ends, and you can go flat out for just a little bit longer until right here. So once you're about to start to make contact with the curbs on the right, that is where you lift off of a throttle, but you're not going to lift off of a throttle all the way. You're just going to use around 50% throttle input, and this is just to try to keep the car nicely balanced. Now for this left turn, you're going to brake and start to turn in before the grass on the left ends. And you'll see that I'm going to be using 50% braking power for a short moment and go down to third gear, trying to stay towards the left side of the track, and then brake just as the curb on the left is just about to end. And I'm going to start to turn in just after I start to brake. You can stay on third gear for this turn, and you do want to be just a little aggressive getting back on the throttle and use the entire width of the track, including the red and white curves, as you're still within the track limits. So right now my right wheels are on those curves, so I'm still within the track limits. Now shortly after you exit the first tunnel, this is where you want to start to brake. So you're going to be using around 50% braking power and start to turn in. You want to stay on third gear for this turn, just trying to bring yourself all the way to the right side of the track. So you're going to be doing quite a bit of trail braking. And just before you start to point towards the tunnel, this is where you can start to gradually get back on the throttle, but you don't want to be at full throttle just yet. This is because if you get on the throttle too early, you risk understeering into the wall, or worse, you risk spinning out. So just as I'm pointing towards the tunnel, this is where I start to fully accelerate my way out. And if I do it just right, I should be able to go through here without a single issue. The car doesn't want to step out. The car remains on its best behavior. Now, just as I hit the apex of this mini right turn, this is where I use 50% braking power for a short moment and start to turn in. So I'm trying to get the car's weight shifted forward so I can try to get this thing to turn in a bit better. Letting the car coast for just a moment so the car can turn in a little better. And just as I'm passing the first BBS sign on the left, that is where I can start to fully accelerate my way out. Now go towards the right side of the track and you're going to brake right as the bridge starts. So this is just before I start to brake. You're going to use all of your braking power and make your way down to third gear. So down to third gear, full braking power for a short moment. Turn in before the curb on the right ends, so you'll be doing a bit of trail braking as you're turning in, just easing off the brakes as you're turning in. Let the car coast for just a moment, and you need to be really careful getting back on the throttle, because for this part I often found myself spinning out if I was turning in too much while trying to be at full throttle input. And also you also want to be careful because it is possible for your left wheels to pinch this little area right here and get yourself off track. So you want to make sure that your left wheels touch the red and white curves, and if they do that, then you're still within track limits and you'll be okay. So now you can just straighten line it through here, just trying to reduce the track distance close as you can to the walls on the left. Then bring yourself as close as you can to the walls on the right. Stay towards the right side of the track, and your final braking point is going to be almost here. So if you're in chase cam, you can definitely use the Gran Turismo banner as your final braking point. So you're going to brake right as you go under this banner. But if you're in bumper cam, you can brake before you reach the 100 meter board or before the curb on the right starts. So you're right under the banner as you're starting to brake. So you're going to use all of your braking power, make your way down to second gear. So you're going to turn in just before the curb on the right ends, and you can see here I'm already down to second gear. So as you start to turn in, go ahead and start to ease off of the brakes. So you're going to be doing quite a bit of trail braking, just trying to get this car pointing towards the next section of the track. And just as I'm about to start to hit the apex, this is where I start to gradually ease on the throttle. So I'm trying to build up a bit of momentum, and also just trying to be careful that I don't spin the car out. And again, you just want to try to get the car pointing towards the next section of the track, as you want to reduce your steering input as you start to fully accelerate your way out. Now you can use the red and white curves, they are still within the track limits. Do not cut this right turn and do not cut this left turn, as there are some bollards hanging out there, and if you hit those bollards, then you're definitely going to get your lap time invalidated. But that's going to be it for this lap guide. Hopefully this lap guide helps you out. The non-commentary section for the bumper cam and the chase cam will start up shortly. But if you like this video, please do consider hitting the like and the subscribe button. But that's going to be it for me. Take care, everyone. Good luck in this lap time challenge. This is Mr. CA, and I'll see you in the next video.